Now, what does a Biden win mean for U.S.-Mexico relations?
The headlines here in the UK, it's time for America to heal.
Here in France, there is also the question of the rumbling trade war between the EU and the US.
State media has stressed that China will continue to forge its own path and follow its own agenda, no matter who's running the US.
I don't think we're going to see the kind of bromance that we saw develop between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Donald Trump.
The Kenyan, South African, Nigerian presidents quickly congratulating President-elect Joe Biden on winning this race. In the corridors of power, it's seen as a critical moment.
Well, it's safe to say here in Mexico, people were really paying attention to this election. I think you could argue a lot more, perhaps, than in previous elections. And now we know who won. It's Joe Biden. Now, what does a Biden win mean for U.S.-Mexico relations? I mean, the United States is the most important country in the world to Mexico, economically, politically, you could argue even culturally, and a Biden administration could really alter the dynamics that have developed over the past couple of years. I think the place where you're going to see a really big change is going to be in the immigration policy. The Trump administration, for example, put in place something called the Remain in Mexico program, where people who are seeking asylum in the United States had to wait for their applications to be processed, not in the United States, but in sometimes very dangerous border cities in the north of Mexico. Biden has said he's going to end that policy. So that's one change that we're expecting very quickly. But one interesting thing, too, I think we need to look at is the relationship between Biden and Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Kind of surprisingly, López Obrador and Trump really had a good relationship. You know, López Obrador didn't come out and immediately congratulate Biden the way many other world leaders did. López Obrador said he wanted to see how the legal issues played out. It's pretty shocking given how important the United States is to Mexico. But what we do know is a Biden administration could have a profound impact on the U.S.-Mexico relationship going forward in a number of different ways.
Well, this is what people have been waking up to, their headlines here in the UK. It's time for America to heal. People here really want to know that there's a president in the United States who wants to work with the rest of the world, who isn't so isolationist. But for the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, that's something of a problem because he was getting on very well with President Trump. People had even described him as a mini-me President Trump. He was planning a big trade deal, a post-Brexit trade deal with President Trump. Now he's got to switch gears to President-elect Biden. That's a problem for the Prime Minister. But let's go talk to a few people here and find out what they think about President-elect Joe Biden.
Yeah, it was following the election. I think it shows a divided nation, a very divided nation. And I hope that things can be accepted and move forwards from here.
And I think this is what so many people around the world would like to see leadership from the United States on. Leadership to help tackle this pandemic, to get to the other side of it.
Here in France, there has been a lot of attention paid to what turned out to be America's election week.
Je préfère avoir quelqu'un à la tête de la première puissance mondiale, quelqu'un qui paraît plus sympathique que le précédent président.
Also, though, there is the question of what a Biden presidency will mean for Europe and for France in particular, and that has been preoccupying the French press an awful lot. A lot of European leaders and officials telling me that whilst they think that clearly the Biden presidency is likely to lead to better relations, there is also the question of the rumbling trade war between the EU and the US. And what we're told here is that people don't necessarily believe that that will get any better quickly, partly because Joe Biden has vowed to pursue this Made in America policy, and also because of the nature of the retaliation cycles that's going on, with the EU, of course, looking at its own trade tariffs now in retaliation to the American ones.
In some ways, it may feel as though the entire world is watching the United States right now. And while that may be true from a political perspective and a governmental perspective, I gotta say, talking to people here in Beijing, in China's capital, this is not something that's consuming every aspect of their day and lives. State media, through several editorials over the past days, has stressed that China will continue to forge its own path and follow its own agenda, no matter who's running the U.S. One of the officials with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs did speak about the incoming U.S. administration, as he put it, and said that he hopes that this incoming U.S. administration will meet China halfway, adhere to the principle of no conflicts, no confrontations, mutual respect, and win-win cooperation. Biden likewise has been critical of China, even calling President Xi a thug. It's strong language, but the question is, will it be followed by action?
Israelis have been glued to the news in recent days, watching all the dramatic developments unfold in the US elections with a fascination that perhaps you wouldn't find in many other countries around the world. And the reason for that is that what happens at election time in the United States really matters here in Israel and in the region as a whole. Now, under a Joe Biden presidency, I don't think we're going to see the kind of bromance that we saw develop between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Donald Trump. Perhaps most importantly, from Israel's perspective, Trump pulled the United States out of the Iran nuclear agreement, something that was vehemently opposed both by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and many Israelis. That's not to say we're going to see a huge change in policy vis-a-vis US-Israel relations under President-elect Joe Biden. Indeed, Netanyahu and Biden go back many years. Benjamin Netanyahu tweeting on Sunday morning, "Congratulations, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We've had a long and warm personal relationship for more than 40 years, and I know you as a great friend of Israel. I look forward to working with both of you to further strengthen the special alliance between the US and Israel." We also heard from Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas saying that he was looking forward to working with Biden and his administration to enhance Palestinian-American relations and achieve freedom, justice and dignity for our people. And for all Netanyahu's congratulatory messages for Joe Biden and his talk of their warm friendship, which seems very genuine and goes back decades, Biden's victory could actually be a bit of a worry because it may give encouragement and hope to his opponents, namely that if they see that Donald Trump can be ejected at election time, then the same fate can befall Prime Minister Netanyahu.
I'm Dave McKenzie in South Africa. There hasn't been an intense reaction across the continent about the results of the US election, but in the corridors of power, it's seen as a critical moment. The Kenyan, South African, Nigerian presidents quickly congratulating President-elect Joe Biden on winning this race. President of Nigeria, Buhari, said that the experience of the former vice president could add value to the presidency and to world affairs. Are you hoping for a different kind of relationship on a personal level, on a people-to-people level with President-elect Biden?
I hope that Biden can rekindle the relationships that African countries wish to have with the US. And I hope that he addresses the Afrophobia that Trump exacerbated or caused.
Nelson Mandela and South Africa, of course, is known for a peaceful democratic transfer of power, a symbol. And America, for better or worse, for decades has said the same thing or given that advice to African countries. Somewhat ironic, many Africans feel, because they saw, like everyone else, how Trump refused to concede when it was clear that he lost.
At the end of World War II, the Soviets were holding Berlin under siege. In order to save millions of people from starvation, the US and allies devised a plan to airlift in food. One American pilot decided to take it a step further. He delivered candy.
My name is Gail Halverson, but I'm known as the Berlin Candy Bomber. I didn't think that the airlift would last very long, so I thought I'd better get a movie of this operation before they send me home.
One day, while filming the planes taking off and landing, Gail became aware that there was some young children watching him. He went over to talk to them, and after a while, he realized,
"Dummy, don't you know kids like chocolate?" And I knew that they had not had chocolate in the stores in Berlin for 2 years. And I reached in my pocket, and all I had was 2 sticks of Wrigley's Double Mint gum. And I broke the 2 sticks in half, gave it to the kids, and the kids with half a stick tore off the wrapper into thin strips and passed it to those without gum. And those who received the wrappers put it up their nose and smelled a piece of wrapper.
Inspired by their generosity, He decided that next flight, he would drop them chocolate and candy via parachute from the plane.
They said, how do we know what airplane you're in? And so I said, when I come over the airfield, I'll wiggle the wings of that big airplane. And they said, oh, great.
True to his word, the next day Gale began to drop the packages. What started with just 2 sticks of gum eventually turned into 23 tons of chocolate.
From then on, I was known in the press and all the kids in Berlin, that's not but wiggly wings.
And in case you were wondering if the candy bomber still has a sweet tooth.
Oh yeah, I still eat chocolate. I like dark chocolate.